I have literally had this book on my to-read list for 12 years. Bud, not Buddy. I finally got around to it. Let's go.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
So this book kind of falls into the same category as Love, Hate, and Other Filters, in that I could be kind of critical of it, but honestly it's just a really sweet, heartwarming story, and that's all it's trying to be. And this one is not quite as good, but that's mainly because it's trying to be a kid's book, and I'm just no longer in the target audience for it. So this book is about a 10-year-old black boy named Bud who lives in an orphanage during the Great Depression, and it's basically just the story of him trying to find his father. Because, you know, he was raised by his mother for a long time, but then she died a couple of years before the story starts, and that's why he went to the orphanage. And by the time the story starts, he's finally tired of getting put in foster homes and coming back to the orphanage over and over again. He's tired of getting mistreated. The orphanage is really crowded, and he just doesn't like it there, so he just says, okay, fine, I'm just gonna go find my dad. Let's see what happens. And beyond that, it's just a really nice little journey for him. Of course, I say journey, but it is a pretty short book, because like I said, it's meant for kids, so it's only like 240 pages, I think, and you know, that's fine. That's a fine length. It didn't need to have a whole bunch more filler or anything. It's just that it's not like any sort of epic The Hobbit-style journey or anything like that. So if you're worried about that sort of thing, then don't be. It's fine. The main thing that impressed me about this book is just the way it's written, because it's told from Bud's first-person point of view, and he's a very, very interesting character. I'll get to his character in a second, but mostly his voice is very, very good, because, like I said, he's 10 years old, so the whole thing feels kind of childish, but in a good way, you know? Like, when you're a kid, a lot of things are just, you know, wondrous and new, and you're always curious about what's going on, and so in that regard, this book really does feel like a 10-year-old telling a story, but Bud is also, you know, really intelligent for his age, so it doesn't feel, nothing feels dumbed down or anything. Of course, even though he's very intelligent, Bud does occasionally, you know, misunderstand things, or have things go over his head, or he just believes things that older people wouldn't. Like, at one point he thinks he's being attacked by a vampire bat, and he thinks it's gonna suck out his blood or something, and, you know, those misunderstandings are funny sometimes, sure, and it's not like they're annoying or anything, certainly. It's just that they add a little bit of flavor and make it feel, again, like a real, actual kid is in this story. And that's the biggest thing that I really liked about Bud, to be honest, is that he feels like a real kid. You know, he doesn't feel like an adult trying to write a kid and doing a very bad job of it. He doesn't feel like someone who just misunderstands what kids are like. No, the author of this book really does seem to have a grasp on what childhood was like and what kids thought, the way kids thought. So yeah, Bud going on his journey and all that's really fun, because the whole time you're just with him, and you really root for him the whole time. You want him to find his dad, and you want him to find a new home, and you want him to find a purpose in life. There are other characters in this too, but they don't really stand out all that much, you know. Like, Bud talks about his mom in a lot of flashbacks, and she seems like a perfectly nice woman and all, but also, you know, through his eyes, she's just a perfect mother figure. She doesn't really have a three-dimensional character or an arc or anything like that. At least not until near the end, when you find out a little bit more about her, when she becomes more interesting, but other than that, it's mostly just Bud. And I've gotta say, for a kid's book, this gets a little intense at times. Like, it doesn't have any violence or swearing or sexual content or anything like that, and it doesn't really imply that there's violence or anything like that, but it really doesn't shy away from showing what life was like for a poor person during that era. It's pretty shit. You know, you have people that literally live in Hoovervilles, which are like big shanty towns made of tin shacks and cardboard, and you have people jumping on trains trying to go to other parts of the country to see if there's work, and just a lot of really, really terrible things that were going on at this time. And Bud understands that it's terrible, certainly. He doesn't, you know, go into detail about, oh, what caused the Depression, why are things like this, or anything like that, but he understands that things are bad at the moment. And so through that, we definitely, as readers, we definitely get that, yeah, this is a bad time. Like, and I mean, I already knew that, but like, if I was a kid, I wouldn't be quite as familiar with it, and this book probably would have helped me understand more. The one thing that this book didn't really dive into that I expected it to was racism, because, it's like 1934, I think, or actually I'm not sure if they ever specify the date, but, it's during the Great Depression, and Bud is black, so you'd think he would get a lot more shit for that sort of thing, and you meet several adult characters who are also black, and they just don't really go into racism. It's kind of strange, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying every book needs to be about that. I'm just saying it's weird that this one barely even mentions it. In fact, it's brought up a couple of times that with poor white people that they're like, we're all just poor, who cares? And I really don't think that was the average attitude at the time. And, in fact, I think a lot of them probably would have blamed black people for being poor. I mean, it wouldn't have made any sense, but whatever, there's not much logic in that mindset. So that was a bit weird, but it's not really a deal breaker or anything. It just threw me off a bit. Like I said, though, this book has a couple of parts that are pretty raw, honestly, like Bud getting separated from friends and family, and he doesn't know if he'll ever see them again, and talking about the death of his mother. Like, for a kid's book, those are really, really brutal. I mean, I read them now, and so they just made me feel sad, but if I was a kid and I read these, I probably would have been bawling my eyes out at one or two points in this book, because it really gets you. So that's about all there is to say. This book, it's a kid's book. It's not super long or super in-depth or anything, but it's a very nice story. And while I did like it plenty now, there's a lot of little bits that sort of bothered me that definitely wouldn't have bothered me if I was a kid. So, can I recommend this? Not really to someone my age, but if you are a kid, or if you have a kid, or know a kid who's like 10 or 12 years old, or even younger, and you just hand them this, or you recommend this to them, they would probably love it.